Thank you, Charles. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. And it's an honor to be here on behalf of the Sephardic Bikkur Holim tonight. Our MHR crisis team prides itself on always being the first call and the first to respond in the event of emergency. But tonight, we're one-upping ourselves, because tonight what we're trying to do is to get ahead of the event, to make sure that there's no call that we need to respond to. Recent history has shown that our community is not immune from tragedy, and specifically from fire. For anybody who reads the paper regularly, you know that it's been coming up more and more often. And ironically, when we go outside of our homes, when we go to schools, when we go on planes, when we go to malls, there is so many procedures, so many instructions, so many safety mechanisms in place to protect us from these types of tragedies. But at home, where we spend most of our time, we really fail to have the right procedures, the right equipment, and the right processes in order to prevent harm to us and our families. So tonight is about making sure that we are armed with the right tools and with the right information to protect our homes and to protect our families. And to that end, we have brought professionals with too much experience in this in order to show us the do's and the don'ts, what we're supposed to teach our kids, how we're supposed to run our homes so that we can protect ourselves and protect them from these types of harm. It's my pleasure and honor to introduce Ronnie Towell, who's a leader, who's a visionary in our community, and who has been helping us through and through, and has invited unbelievable guests to join us tonight, and he will introduce them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. For those of you who don't know him, he's prone to exaggeration. We have an honored guest today. It's Councilman Chaim Deutsch. I want to say a few things about him before we ask him to come up and begin our program. Chaim Deutsch is 100% born and bred. He's a true Brooklynite, somebody we can count on through thick and thin. He represents the 48th City Council District. That's mostly east of Coney Island Avenue to approximately Nostrand Avenue, from Avenue M to Sheepshead Bay, Manhattan Beach, and more. It's a very large district. Prior to his election into New York City Council in 2013, Chaim started his career in public service by founding the Flatbush Shore Marine Safety Patrol in 1991. Over the years, he developed the organization into the well-respected entity that it is today, working alongside the NYPD to tackle local crime and keep our streets safe. Councilman Deutsch has been a tireless advocate in helping those in need. From seniors who are homebound or infirm, to kids who are at risk of drug addiction, alcoholism, and abuse, Councilman Deutsch has taken a personal interest in countless sensitive cases with very, very positive results. Nice. Councilman Deutsch offers exceptional constituent services in his district office. In fact, if I'm correct, Councilman Deutsch's office has the distinction of being either the #1 or #2 most responsive in the quality and quantity of responses to constituent requests in all of the 51 different council districts throughout the 5 boroughs. No matter what the challenge, Councilman Deutsch has always been there. When Hurricane Sandy struck in 2012, Chaim sprang into action, mobilizing community-based volunteers to evacuate waterfront residents and to coordinate the distribution of necessities for people who lost their homes and possessions in the storm. With the help of volunteers and organizations like Kojo of Flatbush, Chaim collected and handed out thousands of blankets, heaters, baby goods, household items, and articles of clothing for those who were displaced by the storm. He was a familiar sight during those difficult weeks, passing out hot meals 3 times a day to residents without electricity. And for what's most appropriate for this evening's topic, Councilman Deutsch has been at the forefront of several major initiatives throughout the city, including at Get Alarm New York City campaign that outfits every home in New York City with a smoke alarm. And more than all the above, Councilmember Deutsch has been a friend to our community as well as the broader Jewish community at large. I'd like to introduce Councilman Chaim Deutsch.
Thank you, Ronnie. I didn't think you were going to read my speech. So first, my name is Councilman Chaim Deutsch. I represent the 48th Council District in New York City Council, which includes parts of Midwood, Sheepshead Bay, Manhattan Beach, Brighton Beach, Luna Park, Trump Village, and Brightwater Towers, some areas you probably never heard of. But I represent one of the largest districts in the city of New York. And first I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening on this cold night, and also in preparation for this snowstorm, upcoming snowstorm. And you all demonstrated by coming out how much you care for yourself, for your families, and for your neighbors, because this information that you're going to be getting tonight is important to pass on to all those that are not here tonight. And there's nothing more important than education. There's nothing more important to taking preventive measures and in being proactive before any type of disaster may occur. So you always need to have your know your surroundings and know what to do, and especially when it comes to a house fire, you need to have a plan in place. So you need to go home and discuss with your family that, God forbid, you hear that smoke detector, the smoke alarm going off, what they need to do. And don't try to be a hero by putting out the flames before getting your family out. Very important, first and foremost, is your family. Don't panic. When you panic and you just stay in one place and you don't know what to do and nothing gets done, nothing happens, and God forbid, you can have a disaster. So if there should be, and I know we all, I had 2 fires in my house throughout my lifetime. I'm married 29 years, and I had 2 fires in my house. And the first thing you do is get your family out and call 911. Very important. You have to keep calm. You cannot panic, and just do what needs to get done to keep your family safe. And by doing what you need to do, by calling 911 to have the fire department respond as soon as possible. Unfortunately, our community is not new to such tragedy. I live on the block on Bedford Avenue between L&M, on the block where 7 young brothers and sisters perished in that terrible fire. I was woken up at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning by the New York City Police Department, and I rushed out, and unfortunately it was a real tragedy. And every day I go home, and every day I leave my house or come home, I have to look at that boarded up house, and I pray to God that God should have mercy on us. And then most recently on East 14th Street, when I was notified by the city that there's another 2-alarm fire happening in my district, and we went down to the scene. There's nothing really that I can do. We need to leave it to the first responders, to the people in the fire department, New York's bravest. Let them do their job. There's nothing an elected official can do when there is a fire happening. You need the first responders to be there. So this tragedy took the life of a mother and 3 young children, and right now you have still 3 hospitalized fighting for their lives. And I just got off the phone a few hours ago with Rabbi Ozeri, who came back from the hospital, and it's not a good situation, what's going on. So I'm not going to get into details because I don't know if it's for public record, but we need to do everything possible to protect our families. And just a few years ago, after the Sassoon fire, which is right now, it was March in 2015, I believe, I had an initiative in the New York City Council. It was a $1 million initiative to outfit all New York residents with smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms. And this was a $1 million initiative that I brought up in the City Council, and it was matched by Kidder, the manufacturer of the smoke alarms, and they gave additional $4 million to this project. We gave out tens of thousands of smoke alarms. It was right after the tragedy, and people came out and people picked up the smoke alarms. And I had over a dozen events with the young men that are standing in the back here who are really, when you hear the presentation, they really understand our community. And so one thing I want you to listen. I invited a guest today, and when I distributed these smoke alarms through my district office, and we had different events with the fire departments, standing in street corners, it was one person, while I had a forum, fire prevention forum, standing in the front. I had a whole program set up, exactly who's going to be speaking, and how long the program is going to last. And this guy came up to the mic and started grabbing the mic from my hand. I'm like, excuse me, but no, we have a program. He goes, no, I must speak. And I handed him over the mic, and that was the best few words that anyone could hear when it comes to fire prevention. I'm going to have him come up here in a few minutes, and he will give the same speech, and he will let you know of what happened to him and his family. So I'll have him come in. But before I do that, I want to thank the Sfadik Pikacholim, Mr. I'll need my glasses. Mr. Aney, thank you very much for all the work you do. Mr. Ronnie Towell, who I have a very close relationship with. Nathan Kranowski, the Executive Director. Sarah Ash. And also I want to thank Rabbi Ozari. We've been in constant contact. So we have here the fire department. I believe we also have the American Red Cross. So first I want to thank Joe Spaccarelli, who's here from the American Red Cross, and Vivian Moy, who's here as well on behalf of the American Red Cross. And we also have here representing the fire department, Lieutenant John Irico, and one of our own who lives in the neighborhood, who came to every single fire prevention forum that I had, and there was over a dozen over the last few years. He understands the sensitivity of our community. He understands what we use, whether it's Shabbat or during the week or during Hanukkah, during the holidays. He knows it all. And we're fortunate to have someone like him who's going to make the presentation today. So I really want to thank Lieutenant Anthony Mancuso. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming down here. So before I call up the fire department, I'd like to ask our special guest who's going to say a few words. Robbie Cohn, please, if you could come up. Thank you.
We get a knock on the door. My wife, I was in the hospital. I had a serious operation on my knee last week. I was back in the hospital today to be checked over, and there was an infection, but I felt I have to come because the message that I'm going to give you will bolster and strengthen everything that our councilman said. That I'm standing here in front of you, and many of you know my face, you've seen me in the neighborhood. That I'm standing here in front of you is a mofet, is a miracle. We are a living miracle. July 10th, 2 years ago, after the Shabbat meal, my wife cleaned up, had a lot of guests, we sang a lot of songs, we had a lot of chamim, we had a lot of chont, or whatever it is, and I went upstairs to lie down. My wife finished, she went upstairs, and we went to sleep. In the middle of my sleep, in the haze, I hear the sound of a fire alarm, of a smoke alarm, My wife didn't hear anything. I was groggy. I got up. I went to the room next to me where I keep my svarim. I couldn't get into the room. The room was full of live fire. I just screamed to my wife, get out. She was, get out, just go down, just grab a rope and go down. We ran down the stairs, the fire was licking at our feet, and anybody that drove by my house for a year and a half at 431 Clinton Road, the engineer, when he designed the streets, he made a couple of mistakes. But anyway, we got out with the shirt on her back. And if it wasn't for the smoke alarm that we got from the councilman, we would not be alive today. And my grandchildren today would not have gotten Hanukkah presents. But so there's nothing more to say. This is unbelievable, and even if you have a smoke alarm, you check it. You check it every half a year. Was it every half a year? So when they change the clocks, you check it every half a year. There's a button. You press it. You must do it. We unfortunately in our neighborhood in the last 2 years, I don't know, you all know, but 2 separate tragedies. Whether there was a smoke alarm or there wasn't a smoke alarm, But the fact is that it saved my life, my wife and myself. If I go and tell you that tomorrow somebody's going to break into the bank, or break into the safe deposit box, the bank has FDIC, so it's up to 10,000, but somebody's going to break into your 100,000, somebody's going to break into your safe deposit box, and banks get stolen, they break into the safes. That's unless your thing is insured. I guarantee you 1,000%, the very day you'll run to the bank and take out whatever's in the safe deposit box. But it's only money. I'm talking about lives. I would not be standing here in front of you if it wasn't for a smoke alarm. And that's what our councilman's telling us tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi Cohn. And although I founded Flatbush Sharma about 28 years ago, it took me a week to find Rabbi Cohn because his house is unfortunately boarded up, and we had to send out my staff to go track him down.
One more, I'm grabbing the mic again. One more thing I can tell you is that we tried, so we decided we're going to sell the house because we had bad mazal, and nobody could buy it. Nobody could buy the house because you can't get a mortgage on a piece of empty lot, on a lot. And not a single bank was willing to give a mortgage because it's not an entity, it's not a house. You'd have to go take a construction loan first. That means go borrow from a bank $100,000 or $100,000, $1 million, or whatever you're going to put into the house, $500,000, and then so we couldn't get a buyer for a year and a half. So this is what we're facing. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Cohn. Thank you for taking your time to come down here today. So at this time, I'd like to call up the lieutenant to make the presentation. Once again, please, when you leave, you need to constantly, when you go home, have yourself a drill with your family, and it can't just be like a one-shot deal. You need to constantly, just like when you check your fire alarms, your smoke detectors, you need to do these drills over and over and over. It could save a life. So once again, thank you for coming down. I really want to thank the FDNY and the American Red Cross. Before I click the send button to invite them, I already get a response. So I really want to thank you and for everything you do and how many lives that you have saved. So it's really an honor to be here and to have you present to the audience here. Thank you.
I'm going to give it a try without the mic. If you have trouble, I'll pick up the mic. Again, I'm Lieutenant Anthony Mancuso, and other lieutenant is John Errico, and together, I don't know, we got about 70 years of fire department time with the fire department. But we're both 39. I don't know, if anybody had any questions, but I live in the neighborhood. John came from the neighborhood. Matter of fact, he went to school with my wife, and 40-something years must have passed. It wasn't until he started working with me, we said, wait a minute, you came from the neighborhood? And my wife goes, yeah, that's the guy that used to throw snowballs at me. See how they find them? See? That's what happens.
I missed every time.
Yeah.
You can start again tomorrow.
That's right. But we don't want you to have a fire. There was a bunch of questions that came in, so I'm just going to run through a bunch of things, and then we'll go through some questions. But the main thing is, and I'm glad the rabbi spoke about the smoke alarms. That's you have to have a working smoke alarm. One on every level. We're finding that between this last fire at 14th Street and the Bedford Avenue fire, there weren't enough smoke alarms. One on every level. Okay? Most of us are in private homes in the area, and you want one on every level. It's very important. The more noise it makes, that's what gets everybody going. Everybody's concerned about, well, what about if I'm trying to get out? Well, the smoke alarm is going to warn you way before the fire gets that bad. And it's so important to have one on every level. And I always tell people about my home. I'm in the area, I have a garage under the house. So I don't want my smoke alarm in that and carbon monoxide in the garage. I want it in the basement part, the living spot. Okay? So that's the living area is between the boiler room in the back and the garage in the front. That's where I want the first one. Then I'm going living room, dining room area, and then one on the bedroom level. Now they're saying, and you'll see with new construction, And other states, the national code is saying besides the smoke and carbon monoxide on every level, there's going to be a smoke alarm in every bedroom. If you want to do that, you can do that as well, but that's not the requirement. But they're going to make you do it if you're doing new construction. They're going to make you do that. Okay, and everybody that tells me about new construction, you'll see they're going to want you to go with that. Okay? The thing about them is if you have the battery type, you want to test them once a month. Make sure the children hear what they sound like. You want to check the battery twice a year when you change the clock. And I brought batteries. If you'd like, you could take batteries, 9-volt batteries. We just like to mention Duracell just gave me 140,000 of these. Every year they give us 80,000 for quite a number of years now, and we give out about 40,000 every change of clock. And I know as it goes by, less and less people have the one with the battery. There are the new ones that the Joe in the back is mentioning that they'll put in. It has a 10-year lithium battery in it, no battery to change. You could buy these in the store, but this is what the law says. If this doesn't work anymore, you can go to the lithium type. So there's all kinds of stuff out there, new technology, but we want to check them, make sure they're working. People have showed me right after the Bedford Avenue fire, I had a lady come with a beautiful smoke alarm. Look at this, it's no good. I said, well, what do you mean it's no good? First, she had the battery in wrong. So we got the battery, you got to put it in right. You got to make sure it makes noise. And then people go, up, I tested it, up, I pressed the button, nothing happened. I said, you got to hold the button and then let it test. Okay? And you want everybody to hear it. That's the smoke alarm. Now this is a dual alarm. That's the carbon monoxide sound. So know what the difference.
It's 2 in 1?
It's 2 in 1. This has 2 in 1. Okay? But I just want to show you so you know what the dual alarm sounds like. The big problem is the smoke alarm. We know we're cooking, it goes off. We hear this all the time. But everybody says, well, what happens with this carbon monoxide? Your carbon monoxide is the 4 short beeps. That goes off. How do you feel? Do you have flu symptoms? No fever? You say, gee, you know, especially the little ones or a small pet, you're going to see them, they're not really moving around like they should. Everybody doesn't feel well. Well, there's that. You have a problem. Okay? You want to get out, call 911. We'll come, we'll take a reading, we'll see what the carbon monoxide issue is. Okay? If you don't feel any symptoms, you may want to put a new battery in it. How old is it? The carbon monoxide alarms are only good 5-7 years or so. Most of them are after 5 years they go. So those are the basic things you're going to do with your carbon monoxide. But remember, carbon monoxide comes from a fossil fuel. Any fuel we get from the earth, oil, gas, wood, or coal. If you burn it, it's got to go vent somewhere. The only thing that's not vented in our home is our gas stove. Okay? Our gas stove. So, if you leave the gas stove on, you have a carbon monoxide issue. Okay? There is a slight, that's the byproduct. Okay? So you want to be careful with that. You don't want to use your gas stove for heat. Okay? This is an issue leaving the stove on. Okay? That's the only appliance that's not vented. If you have a gas dryer for your clothes, it has a vent pipe to go to the outside. Okay? If you have a gas or oil heat or a water heater, that's gas water heater or there are some oil water heaters as well. It's going to vent outside. Okay?
The oven is okay? The oven?
The oven is just like the range top. If you put your oven on or your range top, you may have a slight carbon monoxide buildup if you're leaving it on for many hours. Okay? If you're cooking a lot, you got to get some air exchange in there.
So does it stay, or like it builds up the carbon monoxide after time? Or
well, what happens is that what do we do now with the heat season? We want to make sure the house is very tight. We want to make sure that there's no leaks. All right. So yes, if you've got air transfer, yes, it'll dissipate. Okay, but most of the time the houses are all closed up, and that's the issue. Okay, so you don't want to use your stove for heat, or you don't want it going on for many, many hours. Right? But the working smoke alarm, 1 on every level. If you're in an apartment, 1 by the bedroom area, that's pretty adequate. You could put another 1 in the bedroom as well. But a big problem is we're having with the private homes is you want 1 at every level. That's the minimum. Okay? Now you could take a battery, I have them in the back. Someone asked me about the carbon monoxide, the plug-in types. They have a battery backup and a plug-in. They'll say, yeah, but it's plugged in, it still makes a noise. Well, if the battery is worn down, you got to have both. It wants you to have both in working order. But these last about 5-7 years. I see them go in about 5 years. Does it take a 9-volt battery? I have 2 in the house that are like this. One's got a 9-volt, one has a AA. So depends on who makes them. Okay, but the dual alarm is great to have. It's got everything in it, and it'll warn you, okay, on all levels. Don't be afraid to call 911, okay? You have a medical issue, you have an alarm going off, you call us, you don't know what it is, but it's very important that you have your plan and you're on your way out. And if we're in private homes, we all should have a meeting place. Where are we going to meet outside? Some of us have older children, or maybe another older family member. They may go out a different way. You know, the little ones you're going to grab and go out, but you don't want to go back in. You never want to go back in. If you get out and you're at a meeting place and there's someone in the house, you want to wait for us. We're responding 2 to 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. Okay? If you're in front, you tell us, well, we got somebody in that back bedroom. Okay? This way, we'll know where to go immediately. Because, you know, we get in the building, we don't know the building. We're going to go in and search as we go through. And that's worked out very well, but you don't want to go back in. Have a meeting place out front. Have a plan. No surprises. Someone told me a story once. They said, oh, yeah, 3 o'clock in the morning, I set off the smoke alarm, and I see what the no, that's not good. Somebody's going to get hurt, right? You could dim the lights. You know, dim the lights. You could, children like to play act. You say, go lay in your bed, make believe you're sleeping. I'm going to set the smoke alarm off. And what are we going to do? And they said, okay, I'm going to come. I'm going to wake mom and dad up. And we're going to go down the stairs. And we're going to go out the front door. Whatever it takes. Okay? That's your plan. That's it. Doesn't have to be, you know, something elaborate. Basic. The ladders, everybody was asking me. We got a couple of questions about these escape ladders. Yes, they're approved. UL approved. Underwriter's lab, just like your smoke alarms or your heaters or the electrical products you have. But if you never try them, it could be a problem. But again, I stress the alarms. The more alarms to warn you, so this way you can go out the regular way. When you dump that ladder out the window, it's straight. Well, who are you going to take? Well, I don't know. I'm going to take... No, well, you could wait. No, I'll take you down. I know you're going to go through that. Well, how, you know, if you have a child, a small child, well, you got to hold them and you're on a straight ladder. And we're not Supermen. We're not anything special. I remember the first time someone handed me their little toddler on a fire escape ladder. And I'm just like anybody else. I got one less on. Now I got the baby, and they're coming down. Now I'm holding. And you know, you don't want to drop anybody else's baby, that's for sure, right? Okay? So that's the problem with the ladder. Okay? What about throwing kids out the window? How? Sometimes you like to, you know, when they act up. Okay. The thing is you don't always want to put somebody out the window or jump out the window. 3 to 5 minutes is our response. Let's go with a second floor issue. Yes, your smoke alarm woke you up, like the rabbi spoke about. So maybe he said there was so much fire, okay? Usually that's not the case because, like I said, it's early detection. He should have closed the bedroom door. Okay, so you isolate that fire. And then maybe get to your front windows. Call 911. All right? Let us help you. Now, if you got to lower somebody down, yes, but you don't want to, you could get, you know, terribly injured going out a window.
Is there a particular brand of ladder, escape ladder, that you would recommend?
They have that UL symbol on them, the UL with the circle. If they're approved, that's what you would go with. Okay?
A rope ladder or a metal hard ladder?
Well, they come metal, they come with a webbing. Okay? Some are all chain. The big thing is the working smoke alarm on every level. The working smoke alarm on every level, so that at least you don't have to use that. But I'm just saying they're difficult once you dump them out, and you should know how they work. If you put them on the sill and dump them out, don't go out the window and test it. You want to go to the ground and pull on it and see that it's working. Maybe you want to go up a few steps, but you don't want to start coming out that third floor window. It could be dangerous, so you got to be careful about that. Again, make your drill where you're in the house. Yes?
If we do want to purchase the ladders for the second floor, and as you said, it's dangerous to not practice, how would you recommend practicing? Like not going out from the front, not showing kids, let's say, how to attach it onto the window, or...
Yeah, the thing is you attach it, make sure it's attached, but you want to go down to the ground and give it a yank and go up a few steps. But coming out the window and you know, could be dangerous. Again, I'd rather you do the drill with set your alarm off and see what the family will do. Okay? All right. I want to take another question, then I want to just finish up, and then we'll take questions at the end. Yes, in the back. If all doors are blocked, you said? With fire. Okay. Again, I know it sounds repetitive. If you have a working smoke alarm, you're going to have that wake you up way before the fire gets that bad.
So how long do you have once the fire alarm goes off to get out of the house?
The smoke alarm, well, you're going to have a couple of minutes. But these quick moving fires is not how it happens. It's usually smoldering.
Yeah, but don't they say like once you open the front door and it gets oxygen, it like gets worse?
Depending on how long it's smoldering. That's what the whole idea of the alarm, warning you right away.
Let's do this. Let's let him finish the presentation, then we'll have time for questions. Otherwise, we'll lose the agenda that he has to come give us the message.
All right. Hold on a second. We'll take the questions at the end. I know everybody, two of the ladies brought in an extinguisher, and they asked me about it. It's just about expired, but the dial was in the green. I said it really is still good. It has a date on it. The thing is they showed me an extinguisher. It's what they call a BC extinguisher. This one's an ABC. And what they're saying is this is good for the whole house. A is a wood and paper fire. B is the liquids, and C is electrical. The one they had is fine. You know, we could have a grease fire in the house. We could have electrical, but you couldn't use it on wood and paper. Okay? But the one they were showing me, sometimes you could put them in your car or put them in your garage. Okay? But again, you don't want to trap yourself. Okay? If you use an extinguisher, you want to stay you could stay 8 feet away. So this podium is burning. I want to make sure everybody's out. There's the exit. That's where I want to go. And it works. There's a pamphlet back there to tell you all about it. The word is pass, P-A-S-S. Pull the pin. A, aim at the fire. S, squeeze the trigger. The last S is a sweep motion. Okay? I have to say the councilman was very helpful.
No, my question is not. Let's hold on, please.
When he had after the Bedford Avenue fires, we had some of these workshops, and one of my neighbors right down from me one morning, he called me right after the fire, which he shouldn't call me. I'm on my way to work. He called 911, okay? But what he had was a toaster oven fire, and because of that basic thing that I just told him, like tonight, he picked this up, and I actually saw the whole fire. His daughter, I guess she figured he knew what he was doing. She took a picture with her phone, and it was a good-sized fire. I would say it's half the size of this podium. That's how big of a was in this toaster oven. Okay, something dripped, and it started to burn, and he used the extinguisher. Put it out immediately. I'm telling you, that kitchen would have been halfway burned away by the time he grabbed the children and went out. Okay, there was a lot of fire from what he had in that toaster oven. Okay, so it worked out well. But you want to be on your way out. And don't keep fighting the fire. You pull the pin, you aim, you squeeze, side-to-side motion. That's it. It just gives you time to get out. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. I do have a pamphlet in the back, ABC. There's a powder in here. There's a powder, but it's not baking soda. Baking soda won't hurt you. So if you got it on other food, it's, you could brush your teeth with this. But baking soda is great in the kitchen. Good for a grease fire. Never put water on a grease fire. One of the ladies said she had a fire. They put water on it. The whole kitchen was black and a big mess. Never put water on a grease fire. All right? If you want to see what that's like, go on YouTube, and it shows you what happens. But they'll put water on a grease fire. So this is good. It'll smother it in the kitchen. You want to cover the pot. Make sure you cover the pot, keeps the oxygen out. Okay? So you want to make sure any of your pots are turned in, right? We don't want the handles. Children may bump into, you may bump into it. Okay? So turn your handles in. Matches, lighters. I found the biggest lighter I could find. All right? We want to be careful about where these are. They don't want to be, you don't want children touching them. Put them in a safe place. One school told us don't show them matches. Some kids don't even know what matches are. They never saw them. Okay? It's probably true. But we do tell them because we don't want another child telling that child, oh, this is something new. It's a toy. And believe it or not, in New York City, there's an ordinance. You cannot buy a lighter that doesn't look like a lighter. You know when you travel, I see it when I head down south sometimes. They got these novelty lighters. It looks like an animal. It looks like a tank. It looks like a taxi. All right, they don't allow that in New York City. You don't see those novelty lighters because they don't want them to be toys. They're for adults, and they're tools. So put them in a safe place.
Blocking some. Somebody's blocking also.
Space heater. If anybody uses an electric space heater, this has to be plugged directly in the wall. Directly into the wall. Okay? You can't put this on an extension cord. You can't put this... We just lost 2 people in Brooklyn the other day. And this is what they had these on extension cords. You can't put these on extension cords. These got to be plugged directly into the wall. Okay? No power strips. None of these power strips with these. This is a heating item. Power strip is good for your computer, your TV, those entertainment items, okay? Not for a heating or cooling item. So if you use one, again, UL approved, or there's another company, ETL. You want to make sure if they tip over, they stop. And this one will, I'm looking for an outlet. They're around here somewhere.
Under the table, one under the table.
One over here?
Yeah, right behind the red bed.
I'm doing the wrong thing. We don't like to put them on the table. They should be on the floor. This way everybody can see. It's hot already. I just put it on. It's hot already. Okay. They work well. 3 feet away from anything that can burn. You don't want to put grandma or your mother-in-law in a room to say she doesn't get up much. I'm going to heat her up in the bed. No good. This has to be supervised. So you use it when you're awake. Don't pick on the mother-in-laws. I've had 2. My first mother-in-law passed away, great lady, and my father-in-law remarried, another great lady. I did good. I had 2 mother-in-laws, great ladies. One's still alive. She's 93. But if this falls over, that's the kind we're looking for. If it falls over, it shuts off.
Oh, that's good.
Shuts off, right? Just shut off, okay? So you look for a product that shuts off if it falls over. But you don't want to run these all night. You want to heat up the room and then shut them off. And they never go in any of these power strips. This is for your computer, your TV. I'll tell you what I have. And I'm a dinosaur, okay? I got some old stuff. I have an entertainment center that has a light plugged in here. Then I have a stereo. It must be 39 years old. Okay, I have a VCR. I got films from my children, right? I got a DVD player. All these things are, most of you won't even see anymore. But I'm just showing you, those are the items that should be in here. Flat screen TV. That's one of the modern things I had.
What about
Okay?
toaster oven?
Huh?
Toaster oven.
Heating item. Heating. Anything that heats or cools does not belong in this. Okay?
What could happen to it?
It's not a fire, it could overload.
Okay, what could happen?
Toasters, toaster ovens, coffee pots. We just mentioned it before to someone. Don't leave them plugged in. Unplug them. You finish in the morning with them, unplug
How
them.
about a refrigerator?
Refrigerator's plugged in. We don't have those kind of problems. This should not be in this either. That's a cooling item.
So you can put that in the kitchen.
Okay?
But what happens to it if, God forbid, you put it in there?
The heating item, if it's a heating item plugged in, sometimes these things melt. And we've seen these. People plug them in here, a heating item, it melts it. They go to the next one. It's melted. And they melt. I've seen this. We've seen that, okay? They melt. That's where the big... It's often not the appliance. It's what we attach onto the appliance. People say, you know what? The electric in the walls, it's old. That's not always the problem.
Let him continue. Let him continue.
That's not always the problem. It's what we plug into the electric. My house in the neighborhood was built in 1925, and I don't see the electric being the big problem. The big problem is plugging things in that aren't so good, that don't work right. That's why if we throw out an electrical item, we cut the cord off. This way somebody doesn't come and say, oh, this looks good, you know.
That's a good idea.
Okay? But don't use something that you're having trouble with. You have a light switch, and you say, gee, this always gets hot. It's got to be changed. There's something wrong with it. Oh, if I push on this a little, it flickers. There's something wrong with that switch. It's time to change it. Okay? It's time to change it. Oh, you know, the outlet is funny. It's kind of jiggling. And you're going to have to change it. Okay? These electrical items are too hot to handle. They're no good anymore. It's time to change it.
What about the phone cord? You know,
the phone cord will get warm. It gets warm, but don't leave it in there. Everybody plugs them in and they go, I leave it there. Okay? You don't want to leave them plugged in. You know, you use them, you charge the phone.
Charging your phone, you mean? That's what you mean, the cord for charging?
Yeah, sometimes that head will get warm. Well, take it out. No reason to leave it in.
2 questions.
Okay. We're going to have to take questions. Can we take questions? Yeah, we'll take some.
Okay.
The batteries, I heard if you put batteries together, they could get also on fire.
There's a lot more.
Okay. This is probably the most dangerous battery to have. Everybody's got a junk drawer, right? You got a drawer. There's it. Go get the pen. It's in the junk drawer, right? A guy in Texas burnt his house. A paper clip ended up on the both ends. This is the one that has, because it has the both poles on the same side. So don't put this in a drawer. You either keep it in the envelope I gave it to you in, or put a piece of tape on it.
Regular battery.
Okay, the regular batteries have the poles on either end. So you're not going to have that situation. Okay? It's a 9-volt. The rectangular, I'm getting my shapes. The rectangular one. You don't put this in a drawer or a piece of metal. People take them and put them in their pocket. You give it to them, and your change touches them. If you put this neck, it gets hot.
Okay, we'll take some questions. One second, let me get to the guy in the back.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Thank you. That was a great question about the. Forget about the back. Okay.
Yeah, hi. You said that we can't use extension cords, but suppose we take a heating item and put it into an air conditioning extension cord. Would that be sufficient? That's made to take heavier loads.
Yeah, you know, we see problems with extension cords and the heating items. If you have an air conditioner, this is an air conditioner cord. It's a flat cord. It's a 14 gauge cord. This one is 16. The higher the number, the smaller the wire. But people will say, well, gee, I got these orange ones. This is the same size wire as this. Wow. So that's not any better. You know, when it comes to air conditioners, but we really don't want heaters on even the heavier cord. We've just seen issues with them. What happens is the longer you take, the greater distance, and the longer you pull the electricity, the more resistance it causes. And resistance makes heat. And that's the problem.
Okay, the young lady in the corner.
All right, another good question. Do you know the smell that we put in the bathroom, those little lighters in the bathroom that smells?
They stink.
Oh,
They smell. Oh, they smell? Okay.
That's a
you know, the biggest problem is those are ones that they can't put their finger on because they claim they burn up completely and they don't know if they're a problem. But you want to be careful with those things that you plug in. Right. Yeah, they go dry and they get hot.
I want to know if the smoke detectors work with each other. If one goes off upstairs, will...
You can buy battery ones that are set up like that. Those are great. I wish
you buy a set?
You could buy them, yeah, and set them up that it'll make all of them go off.
Yeah,
the ones that are hardwired are set up like that. But I wish they would just say that when you buy the smoke alarms, you could set them all up like that. But they are good to have.
My son told me that the Nest system, which is, you know, I'm a dinosaur too, but they are somehow connected together. So if one goes off, it sets off the other one. So just
Nest is a brand, yes.
Oh, so you
another brand,
get
yeah.
them all.
They're expensive, but they work where they pick up the signal. Yes.
Okay, just talk loud. I want to make sure everyone hears your question.
What about the food warmer over the Saturday? That you,
the Shabbat warmer.
I know that. I don't know if you know that.
Well, I'm going to tell you one thing.
He knows.
As an Italian kid, I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to eat dairy. Okay? The problem with the problem with the food warmers, I've seen them. People have brought me these hot plates, and I said, so every Friday night, Shabbos, every Friday night. What Friday night don't you have it? Somebody said, what are you talking about? Every Friday night. I said, okay, that's every Friday night, every week. And I've seen the hot plates. Did you look at it? Did you turn it upside down? And most of them I went, whoa. Did you see where the wire goes in? It looks kind of funny. It looks a little warped. It looks like discolored. You have to look at them and see the condition. You can't run things continuously. You can't leave them plugged in continuously. I'm sorry, I can't. We even looked at a hot plate that if you put your hand on it, it's cold. If you put a pot on it, it warms. We like that. We said this might be the one, but we didn't really care for the way its electrical setup was. But I'd love to see an item like that would shut off. But you remember, even though this is shut off and plugged in, there's electric still going up to this point before it goes on. And that's where we find issues.
All right, next, 1 second.
Take a look at those hot plates. Make
You
sure
can put in a time. The time is good. But some people, when they see the wires corroded, they say, okay, one more week. One more week. One more week. So that's the
Be
problem.
careful with the timers. We've had fires with air conditioners on timers. So be careful with the timers. It's not 100%. Did you?
Anybody else?
Wanted to finish? Go ahead. Finish.
1 second.
Lady wanted to finish her question. Go ahead.
Is it preferable to be in a timer, the hot plate, or to just directly in the wall? Because I have mine on a timer now to shut off for the night hours that I'm not around. But how are those timers? Are they safe?
You know, some of them say they're for heavier appliances. I'm hoping they're, you know, you can't be 100% sure. You can't be 100% sure. That's the only thing I could say. Right.
I have a hot water pump that's on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The coffee for just hot water.
Right.
Is that?
Well, we feel, I explained something before to someone when, as a fire officer, we get into a fire. And we got in here and there was a fire and there's a lot of damage right here. We're going to tell the fire marshal, we're going to tell the chief as well, you know, we got in there and man, there was a lot of fire over here. So of course in a fire this all turns to mush and they come in, they say, wow, it's an LG flat screen. And that's how we find out when products don't work right. And what do we see most of all? Toasters, toaster ovens, coffee pots, electric kettles, things like that. You know, these water warmers and things. These are the ones that we've had trouble with. That's why we say you should unplug them when you're not using them. Okay?
Wait. Gotta listen.
I got you.
Yeah. I'm just, the space heater, the one that, it's a tower, they have numbers on it that you could set it up in a way that it shuts off and turn on with the, is that okay to leave it on?
Well, that's the problem. Yeah, hopefully it'll shut off. You know, I had a neighbor who said to me, he showed me his the heater, and he said, you know, I don't know, could you shut it off? And he's got it wrapped, the wire's still wrapped on it. You know, it had a place to wrap the wire. I said, no, you got to let that all out. So all these little things are a problem, but yeah, they have ones, they have timers. We're hoping that they work right. We say we don't really care for them because this is the ones we have trouble with. They act up. It's just like an elevator. We say don't take the elevator when there's a fire. Why? Because electrical things do weird things. Okay? Being an old, you know, back when you used to be able to work on your cars, I saw electrical items in cars. The car's 25 years old, same electrical item. And then you say, gee, I bought this brand new car, and that electrical item, it goes bad. They act up. And that's why we're concerned about them. That's where we have the trouble. Gentleman up front has been waiting patiently. Go ahead.
1 second. She has the mic.
Oh,
okay. I can't stop the lady.
Okay. Are you going to sing? Oh, no.
So can I just confirm
that?
If,
the mic. I want everyone to hear the question.
So can I confirm that if something's plugged in but it's turned off, there's still electric going through?
That's right. The electric, if I put this in the wall,
right,
and even though it's plugged in, and I don't press the button, the electricity is up to where the switch is, right? It's in the cord. If I bite this and it's plugged in, I'm going to get a shock. The electricity is in the cord. It's not now. Just like they say, you got an electrical fire, unplug it, because now it's just a piece of plastic burning. But if this is plugged in, it's feeding this continuously. Like a toaster. What do? Your toast gets stuck. Before you try to pull the toast out, you unplug it, right? Because you stick something in there, you may start more fire. And if it's a metal thing, you're going to light up. You know.
Can I ask you a question?
Okay. Okay. Yes.
Hi. We have in our house the dual detectors, the smoke and carbon monoxide, and they're hardwired into my alarm system.
Okay.
Now, do I just forget about them, or is there maintenance? Because there's not batteries.
Okay, there should be a battery backup. It could be part of your alarm battery in the alarm box. I would talk to whoever serviced it for you just to give you peace of mind. If there's no battery in the unit itself, some of them you take them down, because this one could be made hardwired. If you take it down, the wire's in it, there's a spot to put the wire, but here's the battery. Some are like that. Some may have the battery in the alarm box. But check, it has to have a battery backup. So it might be part of your alarm box system. Okay? And there is maintenance. That head, even though it's hardwired, that they tell us through the Kidder Corporation, they say they're good for about 10 years, just like the battery ones. So you want to check them. They have the manufacturer's date on the back. So if they're acting up, you could vacuum them. That's a good thing once in a while. Never cover them. If you're working in the house, great, cover them. But you're going to take that off before you go to sleep. Don't leave them covered. Okay, but you don't want dust getting in them.
I just want to mention a few things. That first of all, the Shabbat candles, you could get, if you use oil, you put in a little less oil. They don't have to burn all night. And if you have candles, you can get smaller candles. It's not good for you to light the candles and everyone goes to sleep and then you don't know what happens. Keep it also away from the curtains. And sometimes it happens that a door slams, and if you have a glass, it would just like fall right over. So keep aluminum foil or something underneath, that in case it does fall, it falls on top of aluminum foil. So that's very important. And also the Hanukkah menorahs, you could buy the ones that have less oil. And even if you use the ones that burn an hour and a half or 2 hours, make sure someone is up with the candles. And then ask your rabbi, and if you ask me, that if you go to sleep and it's already lit for a half hour, shut them out, blow them out, and go to sleep, and make sure they're blown out. In addition to that, some people have those microwaves where it has a timer. So you turn it on, and then you take out the food, and you forget to shut it back off because it's still in the timer, and you think the timer is going to shut it off, but you turned it too much to the right. And I know it happened. It happened in my house, and I walked downstairs, and the whole microwave, the toaster oven actually was like really, really hot. And every night I have my pet peeve that every night before I go to bed, I go to the stove, to the gas range, and I make sure all the knobs are closed. Just if you do it every night, don't turn it and force it, because sometimes if you force it and the knob breaks, then you don't realize that because it's broken, gas will be coming out. So just slightly touch it and just move along. So you want to take a few more questions? Yeah. I just want to talk in the mic. I want to make sure everyone hears your question.
I have a mode on my oven, a Sabbath mode. Is that safe? Not safe?
Well, I've seen them. The thing is if it's working properly, it's probably very helpful. I can't swear to every item where it's going to work right or not, but I know a lot of appliances do have these. I would keep an eye on things. Does everything work the way it should work? Very important. I bought my house in 1983, and in the house, the gentleman that sold me the house told me this oven that's in there was put in there in 1950. Okay, it was one of these big porcelain stoves, and it had pilot lights. And even back then, if the pilot light went out, it wouldn't heat up the unit and the gas would not come out unless you heated that up and lit that again. Okay? Even back then. But in 2008, my wife and I, we felt we were able to have a new kitchen put in. So she was upset. Here goes that old stove. I mean, you couldn't move this thing. It was horrible to try to even move it. Okay, very heavy. Well, we got rid of the oven. We put in a new oven, and a year and a half later, we're having company. She said, the oven doesn't work. What happened? I said, here, all this time. The older model, there's nothing wrong with them if it's working right. Okay? If it's working right, there's nothing wrong with it. Okay? The newer one, what went? The electrical item that lights the gas. I had to put a new, you know. No, it was $10. I knew what it was. That's why she keeps me around for 39 years. Right? And I cook too. But, okay? So all I'm saying is just because something's old doesn't mean that it's bad, but is it in good shape? Is it working right? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, if gas leaks, over here.
Okay.
If gas leaks from the range are a big issue, right, why can't they make a law that all the ranges that are manufactured, if the gas is running off, you know, it'll stop by itself after a while? Like a shutoff, you know, it's running by itself.
It does have, the gas stove does have items on it. It has that electrical click. You know, you click to start it. That old 1950 stove I had pilots that if the pilot went out, it wouldn't heat that element hot enough to let the gas out. But there's no way that you can stop it. If you have a gas leak, remember you smell gas. If you have a gas leak, don't put the lights on, don't put the lights off. Get out. Get out, call 911. Somebody said, what about National Grid? Yeah, they got a big long phone number, which you're not going to remember. You can call them, but get out, call 911. Don't be afraid to call 911. Someone said, well, the gas was on a little bit. I knew what it was. I opened the windows. If you know what the problem is and you could shut it, yeah, open the windows. It vents out. It's lighter than air, natural gas. But remember, it's not like propane. If you have a barbecue, that gas is much more dangerous. It's heavier than air. And that's why they say keep it away from the house. It doesn't belong in the house. It doesn't belong close to the house because that gas is heavier than air. It sinks. It'll end up in your basement, and your burner goes off, and your house is a rocket ship now. So remember, but natural gas, believe it or not, is much safer. It is lighter than air. But don't put the lights on. Don't get a flashlight. Get out. Call 911.
So also, I just want to mention microwave ovens consume a lot of electric. So sometimes your breaker would close, and then you would go down there and force it open. You don't want to force it to, to turn it on. You want to call an electrician because that could cause a fire. And also a hair dryer. I know probably all the ladies who use a hair dryer. Probably not too many men. I don't see too many men with hair here. But anyway, so we'll touch it. We'll touch it. Except Ronnie. Except the people sitting up here. But we'll get to the blow dryers. Blow dryers are very important. Let's get a few more questions here. Yeah.
So when you buy something new, usually the cords, they're curled up, they're wrapped, curled up. I've heard many years ago that, right, like that, that when you use an extension cord, it should be opened up fully.
That's
Is there
right.
anything to that because it generates heat or something like that?
That's right. It shouldn't be wrapped up like this. It should be out. And this also tells you could use it for a microwave. Okay? My daughter had an apartment with the smallest kitchen, tiny, but you still couldn't plug in that microwave. This heavier cord comes in 3 feet. All she needed was 3 feet. This is 9 feet. You don't need 9 feet. So if you do have an air conditioner or a microwave that needs an extension like this, you want to get one that's just about what you need to plug in. So you don't want them curled up. You want them out loose. Okay? If you put wires next to each other like this, like this, that's fine, if you want to neaten things up. But you don't want things all wrapped up, okay?
So
Yes.
for the heater of the hot water tank with the chimney, I'm over here.
Oh, okay. All right.
So what's the recommendation for like a chimney sweep or something? Is that dangerous? Does it have to be cleaned?
You mean the chimney itself?
Yes.
The chimney, if you have oil heat, I would check your chimney every year because oil is a lot, you have a lot of soot. The gas is pretty clean. Be careful of chimney companies. They love to come in and say, you need a new chimney. You don't need a new chimney. It's probably fine. They just want to sell you. So deal with somebody, or maybe a neighbor has used them. My dad's house had oil heat, so his oil company had a company we dealt with, and we had it serviced. The oil burner was from 1953. When we changed it in 2002, they said, look at this old, oh, it's horrible, right? But when they took it apart, they went, oh, wow, it's in good shape. Yeah, it's been serviced every year from 1953. There's nothing wrong with them sometimes, okay, but sometimes you can't get parts or whatever. But try to deal with companies. You got an oil company, deal with the oil company with the service and the chimney, okay? Make sure that, you know, if you have a chimney on the house, it's good to have that cap that goes on it with the screen. Because I had a chimney, I have no fireplace, but a bird got in the chimney, didn't die. He got in and he found his way through that fresh air port and is flying around the basement. Now I had to get the bird out of the basement, right? And then I finally put a cap. But you don't want them obstructing anything. You don't want animals getting in there, okay? So that's another thing. But deal with a chimney company that, you know, you can...
What about squirrel? Squirrel coming to the chimney?
Well, that's the... If you have a cap with the screen, they can't get in. They can't get in there.
Okay, we're gonna take some more questions, please, one at a time. I just want to mention that smoke detectors, as you have heard earlier, how important to have a smoke detector and carbon monoxide detector. So there will be a distribution this evening, one per person, a smoke alarm, one per person as soon as we're done, sponsored by Michelle and Michael as Ezerman and family. So thank you very much. In addition to that, so some people are not as tall as I am, and you cannot install your own smoke alarm. So we have, thank you very much, the American Red Cross is here tonight. So you could sign up. You can sign up with the American Red Cross, and they are unbelievable. They call you up, they make an appointment, they come into your house, volunteers come into your house, they go throughout the house, and they install it for you. So you have any elderly, any senior citizens, but please don't take advantage. If you're tall, you have a ladder in your house, don't take advantage. But if you have any seniors or people with disabilities, it's very important that you call, either sign up tonight, or if you're not here, you could call 877-733-2767, or you could go visit them at www.soundalarm.org/NYC. So this is for the record. Okay, we'll take the Red Cross is in the back, so you can still sign up tonight.
If you had to tell someone, or if you're in a program where people need help, 877 Red Cross. That's how you could dial it. Right, Joe? Yes. That's easy not to try to remember that whole number.
So you can take a flyer, or you could contact my office, Councilman Chaim Deutsch's office, and we will do it for you. We'll take some more questions, but I think people have a lot of questions. Let's go here first.
On the topic of smoke alarms, you mentioned that at a minimum there should be at least one per level.
One smoke and carbon monoxide per level, right. Especially if you have a fossil fuel in the house. If you have oil or gas heat, which most of us have.
Would you also recommend having a smoke alarm carbon monoxide detector in a detached garage?
It's usually living space. Okay, living space. So like somebody said to me, don't you have anything in your attic? I have an attic that's pretty big. But once you open that attic, it's more stuff that you store in there. So for 34 years, I've never put anything in there. So there's nothing in the attic. I don't have anything in the attic. I have a smoke and carbon monoxide on every living space level. So a detached garage, no. If the garage is attached to your house, you want it in the house, the alarm. Okay? Yes.
Doesn't matter what angles you put the smoke alarm? Like you put it straight, or you put it like perpendicular to the ceiling?
Okay, where do you want a smoke alarm? If this was our home, and this was the bedroom doors, I'd probably want it up here. It's going to be on the ceiling. Now they come with directions, and you don't want it way in the corner of the ceiling. It's 4 inches away from each wall. If it's on the wall, it would have to be up there within 12 inches from the ceiling. People have, I got a smoke alarm here. Well, the smoke may have to get this low before it goes off. Smoke alarm has to be on the ceiling. Take a look at the directions that come with it. If it was carbon monoxide alone, yeah, you could put it on the wall. They tell you about this high, or a plug-in. But carbon monoxide consumes all the air, where smoke rises. Okay, smoke rises.
Okay. Yes, this is something about the other fellow, or what you were just talking about. Using that smoke alarm when you're cooking, sometimes they go off all the time.
Shouldn't be near the kitchen. You don't want a smoke alarm too close to the kitchen.
How far away should it be?
Oh, I would say at least 15 feet. In my home, I got the kitchen and then a dining room and living room, so I'd have my smoke alarm like in the dining room. Okay, at least 15 feet. Just the way if you have an open boiler in the basement, your alarms could be at least 15 feet away from that boiler if there's no boiler room. Okay? You know, the thing is when those keep going off when you're cooking, you get annoyed with them. You take them down.
Right.
Okay? So try to put it away. If you're in an apartment, put your smoke alarm closer to the bedroom area. Okay? If you're having trouble where they keep going off, like apartment type situation, you could look for a photoelectric ionization type alarm. That's the two types of smoke alarms, photoelectric ionization. They sort of, they're not as much of a problem with the kitchen smoke. Okay, they sort of like a smart alarm. I wish they would make them just all the same way, but they don't always do that. Okay, we'll get you. We're going to get you. Okay, give me a sec. Go ahead.
You mentioned that the carbon monoxide detectors usually go bad after 5 or 7 years. So, first of all, would there be a warning, or would you just automatically replace them?
Usually, the carbon monoxide start to act up. They do weird things, and then you'll put a new battery in, and they'll still do odd things. Most alarms will chirp if they'll chirp if you're having a low battery. If you put a battery in it and it still chirps, it means it's no good anymore. But if you have a carbon monoxide that fully alarms and you don't feel any symptoms, you're okay, you don't feel kind of weird or, like I said, flu symptoms, no fever or things like that, if you check them 2 to 1, it's probably 5 to 7 years and it's time to change them.
Also, what do you feel about heat detectors, if they're recommended?
Well, yeah, a gentleman told me some of the homes, people put in these whole systems. And in the kitchen, they put a heat alarm. They don't put a smoke alarm because it's going to go off every time you're cooking. Okay, but the heater alarm is there as if something's burning, it'll go off. Yes, that's great. But that's a more sophisticated system. It's great if you have it. Okay? We don't want to forget this lady. She's next after. Go ahead. We'll get you.
Is it a fire risk if you have a 3-pronged and it was made into a 2-pronged from a refrigerator to put in a... It was 3 prongs. The person took 1 prong off to put it 2-prong into the wall.
Okay. Yeah, you don't want to alter these things. You don't break them off. Very inexpensive. You could buy an adapter to take this from a 3 to a 2. So get an adapter for it, but you shouldn't break these off. That's not a good thing. You want to keep them all together. It's an adapter that you put on here and it makes it 2-prong. They're very inexpensive. You'll find them in a hardware store. You don't want to do that. Lady way in the corner. Okay.
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
One is, let's say, God forbid, it's too late. The alarm went off and it was too late. You can't get down. What do you have, besides calling 911, what are the things not to do? Like I heard, you shouldn't go into a bathroom unless there's a window and it could properly open. Because people think, go into a bathroom, there's water.
They got water, right. You don't want to go in the bathroom. Usually the window's too small.
Right, so that I know. But what are the other things to just get a couple of more minutes? That's one question.
Okay.
And the other question I have is I have the ladders. So I want to know, I have 1 ladder on each side of the house and 1 on every floor. You know, because I have a 2nd floor and a 3rd floor, where the 3rd floor really doesn't go long enough to the bottom. But I said if you have to, you hang off of it. For the one that's up there,
Okay.
they have no choice. But do you advise having a ladder under everybody's bed in each room? Should I get more? And the other question is, what are the top, if you're in an emergency and you called 911, what are the things that you should not do if you're in that situation? Can you do a couple of extra minutes?
Well, some people, there's many things that go on. I know, experiencing with children growing up. My baby's 27. I'm 39. Did I mention that? But, when the children were young, you want to close your bedroom door. Your wife is like, don't close the door, I can't hear the baby. Right? But some people do sleep with their bedroom door closed. Okay, so your bedroom door closed. This is one thing that could happen. You wake up. The rabbi spoke about him waking up. Say it the way he woke up. And before he would open that door, right? A lot of people say, well, the air, and what can happen next? Feel the door with the back of your hand. The door is hot. This is my bedroom. I got a front window, and then there's a roof over my living room. I stay at that window, call 911. Maybe I want to go out the window and stay on the roof. You don't want to start jumping out and where you can hurt yourself, but that might be an option. Keeping the door closed is good. Gives you some time. Okay. Again, the heavy fire load may not be the situation if you have the working smoke alarms throughout the house because they're so sensitive. Okay. But I know everybody feels like, gee, if it gets bad enough, you know. But those are some of the options where you might, if you have to get out on that porch roof above or something like that. But please be careful about this, you know, jumping out. If you have, like my windows are pretty high on the first floor, things that are possible. Talk about children going out windows. If you take the child and hang them out from that first floor, you may be able to almost get them. If you had to do that, that's good. Okay? But you know a short distance down, head first, could be very dangerous. So, and the same way. You can hang, and now you got some of your body length. Okay? Some of us are taller or shorter, but, you know, with your arms ready, that's a possibility. So remember those things. Try not to go into the worst part about it. All right? Just like we talk about these, none of us are in these high-rise, fireproof apartment houses. And we tell people, don't go in the hallway, keep the door closed. Stay in that apartment, it's fireproof. Stay put. Because we lose people that go in the hallway because they're in the smoke and heat. Right. And that's the same thing in your home. Or you wake up and it's smoking down the hallway, well, close the door if you have to. You've got to take some time and say, well, you know, to get yourself together or whatever.
If there's children in the other bedroom, then it's a challenge.
Well, yeah, you want to go to the other bedroom, see what's going on. But again, these alarms are very sensitive. And these issues with how fast the fire travels, if someone, God forbid, you don't even want to think about it, but gasoline, things like that, arson, they're throwing gasoline into a house and like, yeah, that's going to be a working quick fire. But these fires we have, they're smoldering over many hours, but no working smoke alarms to warn anybody. They smolder, and then it gets hot enough and a window fails, the window goes, and all this air comes in, and now you've got this fire lighting up. And in between that time, most people die from smoke inhalation. That's smoke and gas. Okay? It's a horrible thing to even think about, but this is what's happening. But this is many hours and no working smoke alarms. That's why I said every level, every level. Okay.
Again, if you're home and it's only yourself, you don't have your kids, and you're in the room and you cannot make an escape, so closing the door will give you extra minutes. And if you have to leave, like sometimes if you hit a smoke alarm, you could feel the door to see if the door is hot, then you know that you might not want to open the door. And also when you put out the fire escape and you tell your kids, if the young kids, even older kids, and they panic, right, to start opening the window and installing it. So that should not be like the first and foremost option, because I have seen people panic during the fire and they just froze. So you want to make a plan. You want to have a plan like the lieutenant mentioned, and a place to meet outside. This way you know who's accounted for and who's not. And this way when the fire department arrives, you can say, okay, I have 3 of my 4 kids here, and the 4th kid is sleeping in the bedroom in the back. So this way, as quick as you call 911, as soon as you call 911, as soon as you get the information over to the firefighters, every second counts. Really, every single second counts. So we'll take some more questions.
Okay, the one thing about the extra ladders, what I would say is I would put extra alarms. I would put a smoke alarm in every one of those bedrooms. Okay, well that's more important, because you got to remember the darkness, you're trying to use that ladder could be, you know, you're better off with more alarms, more noise.